Throne and Liberty is a newish free-to-play MMORPG and the latest to be released under the wing of Amazon in conjunction with NCSoft, and just like with all free-to-play MMOs, there are some predictable elements included which unfortunately for me sort of drag this game down a bit. This is just my opinion obviously and may not be the case for other players, and I put this disclaimer out there right from the start as I can see a reasonably decent game underneath everything that will probably really vibe with certain people. I shall label my experience as compelling and confusing. Confusing as I couldn't figure out why I was compelled to keep playing. My game time clocked in at just over 20 hours, most of them in one character, and I uncovered a good chunk of the map and did a bit of crafting and upgrading while I was at it, as well as some dungeons and solo challenges, so whilst I didn't get to endgame, not that I'm particularly interested in that side of things, I did experience to some degree a lot of the systems on offer. Anyway, let's have a little chat about my thoughts on Throne and Liberty.
Talk to me.
Firstly, my experience comes in two chunks, with the first being a false start. I haven't got the shittest potato of a computer, I also don't have a turbo spaceship of a PC either. But when I first decided to install Throne and Liberty, it ran incredibly poorly, stuttering and laggy, and I had to turn everything down to low and it just looked like shit and it was slow and it was just a god-awful experience. I uninstalled it after 45 minutes and decided, you know what, fate has decided it just isn't for me. Then, for unrelated reasons, I decided to finally give in and take the free upgrade to Windows 11, the one that I'd been putting off forever. And once I made that change, some of the other apps that I had slight issues with started to work better, so with that being the case, I decided to install Throne and Liberty again, just to see if this made any difference, and to my surprise, it did. I have no fucking idea why, it shouldn't have done, but it generally seemed that this time it was a much better experience, so who fucking knows. I was also kind of FOMO'd by hearing other people report on their experience of the game, and I didn't want to miss out on something, so decided that providing it did work better, I would give it a fair shake of the stick. One of the game's strongest points, which is served to us right off the bat, is its graphics and general presentation. It is a very good looking game with great graphics, cutscenes and general world design. And just like every other review or thought piece I had watched, I too did a massive laugh at the first cutscene proclaiming that we must protect the children.
We must protect the children at all costs.
But as I've said before, I kind of feel like you need a bit of cheesy in order for it to really feel like I'm playing a proper MMORPG, so it scores high on that scale. And the voice acting continued in a very cheesy way and, let's be honest, is a bit shit. But a kind of endearing shit rather than a shit kind of way. While we're still talking about aesthetics, the UI and character design and general feel just give me constant Lost Ark flashbacks. Especially the UI. The menus look like they could have been lifted straight from that game. Like maybe not literally, let's not go getting pedantic now, but close enough. Continuing along the theme of visuals, the character creation is pretty decent and offers a lot of flexibility. IRL, I am a classic white cis-het dude, but online, I am fabulous. I do like that despite Korean MMOs skewing into quite a misogynistic view of women, they do also allow you to put makeup on anyone. Now first things first, the story. Let's just cut to the chase here. You are the special one, or a special one, and I'll be super honest, I couldn't give a fuck about the story. I don't tend to put story at the top of my lists for why I play games. I like there to be a vague story I am following, but I just couldn't give a shit about this story. Games like WoW and Guild Wars 2 feed me bits of cutscenes or spoken dialogue whilst I carry on aimlessly knocking about the place, and Throne and Liberty does have some of that, but none of it grabbed me. Absolutely none of it. I don't care what my flying plushie is doing, I don't care who Fatty Potter is, and I don't care about saving the fucking children. I just want to run from one quest marker to another and kill 10 of something along the way. And to be fair, the game does let you do that if that's what you want. And again, to be fair, it's not an unfun experience. Which brings me to talk about some of the more mechanical elements of the game. Like, what does it feel like to play? Like much of Throne and Liberty, it is always at least good enough. Never excelling, but not bad enough to stop you from playing. Combat to me felt a little janky at first, but you do kind of get used to it, and then it does feel a little better. I couldn't quite decide whether I preferred a controller or mouse and keyboard. In most mmorpgs, I prefer to handle my movement with the mouse and then keep my left hand free for skills. Movement usually consists of clicking down on both mouse buttons to move forward and then the side mouse button to move back. I could kind of achieve this with Throne and Liberty, but not like how I can in WoW and Guild Wars 2. For some reason I found mouse and keyboard a little clunky with combat initially, so I predominantly started off using a controller. And the controller experience is... The whole having to hold down either the right bumper or the trigger button and then hit one of the 4 face buttons to execute a skill feels like totally shit design. But again, you kind of get used to it. But even though I kind of get used to it, I couldn't help thinking that Elder Scrolls Online kind of handles this sort of thing already by just switching weapons with a hit of a button, and when you switch weapons, you then access those other skills. And to complicate things here, as you progress you unlock a third set of 4 skills that you have to hold down the right trigger but hit one of the 4 directions on the D-pad to execute. Like, it's nothing completely demented, but it just feels kind of shit. That's all I can say. And just because you get used to it doesn't mean it's good. Towards the back end of my time with the game, I switched back to keyboard and mouse and it did feel better, but overall, combat does not feel as satisfying as other games. But it does have a pretty good parry mechanic, and that was alright, but that ain't enough to change my mind. And as for movement, it is admittedly better than combat, but it still feels a little lackluster, and I'll try to explain why. I feel like one of the most important things in an MMORPG is movement and how easily you can get around the world. How good does it feel to traverse? Guild Wars 2 grabbed me immediately upon playing, as it just feels amazing to shoot about on your various mounts, jumping up cliffs, gliding or flying around the skies, and Throne and Liberty kind of has that, but like the shit caffeine-free diet version that you have at home. You have the ability to morph into different animals, and these take the place of your mounts. A wolf or cat for running on land, an otter for swimming across water, and an eagle for gliding. You can unlock other forms which are essentially different skins, but they will always be for one of those core travel modes. But whilst it covers off all the same type of traversal as Guild Wars 2, none of them feel as natural. So again, it is kind of good enough, but not great. The last movement related feature is a grappling hook that you can use to scale higher places, which is fine, but it's nothing groundbreaking, but can be useful at times. The world you traverse is pretty nice looking and reasonably well designed. I don't really have any complaints there. There are some real nice set pieces and scenery, with probably the pinnacle for me being the big crusty sky whale that appears every 3 hours and sort of just flies around like a giant barnacled bus. You just have to get on top of it from a high enough vantage point. I think there may be certain materials on the whale that you can farm, but I just sort of sat on it until I tried to walk out on a flipper and then kind of just fell off. Now, the whole time I was playing the game, I was trying to figure out what it reminded me of. It does have some similarities in looks to Final Fantasy XIV or Guild Wars 2, but mainly I am just brought back to Lost Ark again and again, but a 3D version. Which kind of makes me want to play Lost Ark rather than this, even though Lost Ark pisses me off. Maybe I should give Lost Ark another go. No, just remember last time and move on with your life. But while we're talking about Lost Ark, there are more similarities than just the UI and general Eastern aesthetic. The special dungeon reminds me of like the solo challenges in Lost Ark, like the ones where you could go into a sort of map and hunt a monster on your own or with a group. The special dungeons, I think they're called in Throne and Liberty, sort of allow you to enter a space and kill a boss in a sort of 1v1 arena, and then you can progress up different levels and fight different bosses as you go. You get materials for upgrading and stuff as a reward for beating the bosses, so these are probably worth doing, and you can kind of go back and grind them as much as you want. The dungeons seem quite rapid pace and sort of par for the course. I don't really have much to say. I didn't play as many of these and it was fine. It just kind of felt like one big Zerg rush through the dungeon whilst everyone just ran as fast as they could and just battered everything in their path. Maybe these become more complex as you go on. I've certainly heard people talking about the dungeons are quite good, but again, they just seemed fine. So there are plenty of things to do in the game, there's no worries there, and there does seem to be some level of public events, and I do kind of wish that I got to take part in one of those big PvE battles that I have seen on the adverts, but c'est la vie, I guess. Oh, and another Lost Ark comparison that pissed me off was the fact that just like Lost Ark, I found that after a while my menu would seem to just have little red dots over everything, indicating that there was an update or something had happened or something to claim. I just find that tiresome and overwhelming. It was just another thing that always fucked me off about Lost Ark was the avalanche of bullshit I had to claim or look at every time I logged in. So the similarities with the UI just gave me flashbacks and Lost Ark PTSD. Progression is handled by gaining experience and then levelling up. Each level you gain gives you points you can spend on stats. I just alternated them between strength and dex. Whether this was a good strategy I neither know nor care. But in addition to spending points on base stats, you can also upgrade both gear and your skills. And I think herein lies the biggest reason I binned off the game. You use certain materials that are collected whilst playing the game to perform upgrades on both skills and gear. And each time you upgrade there is a sort of RNG aspect where a meter will fill up, and sometimes it may take you more than one attempt to get it to the next level. Eventually you're going to run out of these, and whilst I didn't get to such a point, I can see what is coming down the track. This is a free to play game, so all's fair, they have to make their money somewhere, and rather than just skins in the cash shop etc, that somewhere will probably be much like Lost Ark, where you will end up spending real money in order to speed up the upgrading process. So whilst you can get there without paying, the grind will be long and arduous and designed to beat you into paying to eliminate it. Alongside this there is a battle pass, so all the classics are here. And as I was writing this and making loads of comparisons to Lost Ark and monetization, I wondered whether Throne and Liberty would end up going the way of Lost Ark and other Korean MMOs, whereby you can buy stupid immersion breaking skins. And so I did a quick search online and oh look, yes you can. And in case you're wondering why I can't stop going on about Lost Ark so much, it's because I genuinely really enjoyed the gameplay, but I just hated all the other weird bullshit in that game. So I'm kind of sad about that and a bit butthurt. Now obviously any of this monetization will never really affect me, as I really don't care about being competitive or getting into endgame, but it does irritate me that it's there. I know other games do push you towards spending money on a non-mandatory monthly sub fee or something, like Elder Scrolls Online or Guild Wars 2, where your inventory becomes so problematic to manage that you can just alleviate that annoyance by spending a bit of money each month. But the systems here and in games like Lost Ark just kind of bother me more. I mean, none of them are good, but these ones just feel worse to me. And I don't care if you think they're fine, that's good for you. But coupled with the fact that ultimately the game just doesn't feel that fun to play when compared to other games I play, this is what ultimately made me uninstall it. But like I said at the beginning, there is a decent enough game here with plenty of content, and I'll be honest and say that it was good enough to keep me playing whilst I continually questioned why was I still playing. I play quite a few mmorpgs and I sort of move between them as I get bored of one and come back to it later, and I play them on a kind of rotation depending on how I feel. And the fact that Throne and Liberty won't be amongst them kind of says it all. So how do I feel about Throne and Liberty? Throne and Liberty is porridge with no honey or sugar on it. It's fine, but it's bland. Ultimately, all Throne and Liberty has made me think is, maybe I should try Lost Ark again. And that, in turn, is making me wonder whether I have some sort of early onset dementia and need to get my brain looked at. Oh well, c'est la vie.
Giant frogs in the sand do what we command. Our song will open its heart just like we planned. Through the land of the damned, filled with monsters, we will seek them to the end of this world. Let's go on an adventure! Pieces of the heart. 3, 2, 1! Fallen will rise when the pieces are combined! Tear down the ramparts! Destruction to it all! Cheers of joy in the plaza will be heard around the world!